On today's episode of Real Life Tales of Horror, a deadly Christmas vacation. This comes to us from the Encyclopedia of Arkansas. On December 22, 1987, Ronald Gene Simmons began a killing spree that would be the worst mass murder in Arkansas history and the worst crime involving one family in the history of the country. His rampage ended on December 28, 1987, leaving dead 14 members of his immediate family and 2 former co-workers. On April 3, 1981, Simmons was being investigated by the Cloudcroft, New Mexico Department of Human Services for allegations that he had fathered a child with his 17-year-old daughter, Sheila. Fearing arrest, Simmons fled to the ward, Lonoke County, in late 1981 and then to Dover, Pope County, in the summer of 1983. The family took up residence on a 13-acre tract of land that would become known as Mockingbird Hill. The residence was constructed of 2 older model mobile homes, joined to form one large home, and was surrounded by a makeshift privacy fence as high as 10 feet tall in some places. The home did not have a telephone or indoor plumbing. Simmons worked a string of low-paying jobs in the nearby town of Russellville. He quit a position as an accounts receivable clerk at Woodline Motor Freight after numerous reports of inappropriate sexual advances. He went to work at a Sinclair mini-mart for approximately a year and a half before quitting on December 18, 1987. Evidence indicates that Simmons bludgeoned and shot his wife on December 22, 1987. Simmons also bludgeoned and shot his visiting son, 29-year-old Ronald Gene Simmons Jr. He then strangled his 3-year-old granddaughter. All 3 bodies were later found in a shallow pit that Simmons had instructed the children to dig months before for a 3rd family outhouse. Later the same day, the Dover school bus dropped off the younger Simmons children for their Christmas break from school. Based on crime scene investigation, it is believed the Simmons children, aged 17, 14, 11, and 8, were separated and killed individually by strangulation and or drowning in a rain barrel. Their bodies, too, were found in the hole for the outhouse. The older Simmons children had been invited to the Simmons home on December 26, 1987, for an after-Christmas dinner. 23-year-old William H. Simmons II, his 21-year-old wife, Renata Mae Simmons, and their 20-month-old son, all of Fordyce, Dallas County, were likely the first to arrive. Williams and Renata were shot, and their bodies were left by the dining room table and covered with their own coats and some bedding. The child was killed and placed into the trunk of a car behind the Simmons home. Next to arrive were Simmons' 24-year-old daughter, Sheila, and her husband, 33-year-old Dennis Raymond McNulty, as well as their children, 7-year-old Sylvia, the daughter of Sheila and her father, and 21-month-old Michael. Sheila was shot, and her body was laid on the dining room table and covered with a tablecloth. Simmons shot Dennis and strangled Sylvia. Michael was strangled and placed into the trunk of yet another parked car. Later the same day, Simmons drove to Russellville, where he stopped at a Sears store and picked up Christmas gifts that had been ordered but had not made it in before the holiday. Later that night, he drove to a private club in Russellville. Then he went home and waited out the weekend. On Monday, December 28, 1987, Simmons drove a car that had belonged to his son, Ronald Jr., to Russellville. He purchased a second gun from Walmart. His next stop was the Peel, Eddy & Gibbons law firm. After entering the building, Simmons shot and killed receptionist secretary Kathy Cribbins Kendrick. He next went to the Taylor Oil Company, where he shot and wounded Russell Rusty Taylor, the owner of the Sinclair mini-mart where he had worked, and then shot and killed J.D. Chafin, a fireman and part-time truck driver for Taylor Oil. Simmons shot at and missed another employee before exiting the building. Simmons then went to Sinclair Mini Mart, where he had shot and wounded Roberta Woolery and David Salyer. His last stop was the Woodline Motor Freight Company. Simmons located his former supervisor, Joyce Butts, and wounded her in the head and chest. He then took worker Vicki Jackson at gunpoint into the computer office and advised her to phone the police. Simmons allegedly told Jackson, "I've come to do what I wanted to do. It's all over now. I've gotten everybody who wanted to hurt me." He surrendered to Russellville police when they arrived. And then just a few years later, in 1990, Simmons would die by lethal injection. This has been Real Life Tales of Horror. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like, share, and subscribe. And if you like Michael Myers, check out michaelmyers.net. I am a part of the team that runs the website. Come on over and join today. Join the discussion. We talk about Michael Myers. We talk about other horror characters. We talk about all sorts of things over there at michaelmyers.net. And with that said, I will catch you all down the road.